So, this is gonna be probably the most controversial of all of my videos, but it's not a call of violence or cruelty. It's not a call to action to do any of that. I just want to actually add on to what Nick has said recently. I think he said it in an interview with the guy who's doing the whites only town, or some recent interview. But the point is that I believe what kind of Russia is. He says, Russia has their Tartar areas, their Chechen Muslim areas, but overall it's a white or a Slavic nation, right? You think of a Russian, you think of a Slav, but they also have the peripheral territories, those auxiliary peoples, and that form like they're called. It's some S word, but it's like oblasts that are on the peripheral that are well. The point being is that the U.S. will need that because there's so much there's black fatigue and there's racial tensions. Well, one simple solution is if you see my video, I was just talking about breaking the rules, breaking the confines of not just the Overton window, but what's allowed, and flipping the script and just breaking conventional thinking. Well, what we need is a mass movement to be able to say black people will only be allowed to live here in this part of the U.S. Majority white here. Majority of the U.S. will be whites only in these parts. And then in these parts, it will be Mexican or Hispanics. Probably Mexicans, right? That makes more sense because the only Latin American country that borders the United States is Mexico, so that makes sense. And I can't really think of anybody else that has such a stake because any other immigrants would be like Germans, Irish, Polacks, and they assimilated unlike the majority of the blacks and especially the majority of the Mexicans. Excluding like what I call Texas Mexicans, they're like more white and they have like what Mexicans would say nopal in the nopal attached, which means like that their face is so Mexican, but they're like a white guy pretty much. But the point is that the United States needs to be in that way informally segregated, and I believe I'm not sure about this, but in Russia, I would assume because of how it is, by and large, it's the huge chunk is Slavic people, at least in what's considered the western side, which is still like kind of still Europe, they consider it. But it's like mostly Slavs. If you go to Moscow, St. at least the big cities where I've seen, because there's more content being made there, it's just like it looks like another part of Europe, right? Because it's just Slav white people. But the point is that informally, they're segregated. Now, if you go to the east, it's like Tartar region, um, Tajiks, Kyrgyzstan people, and stuff like that. But it has more of a there's more unison, I would say, because they're understanding their identities, and because we have to find a via media. I forget the word. E. Michael Jones. Like we find a middle ground here because you get like this thing where white people are like, well, they'll be like, they come off as really a, like a country person, and they're like, well, I look at everybody else as the same. I say, if it doesn't matter to me if you're black or white. There's that whole thing, and people find all these like 5D chess ways of explaining why they're not racist and stuff when people aren't just willing to just say the hard thing is that we're not, especially black people, they're not assimilated. They're very aware of their blackness, and that reality shapes their behavior. So the simple fix, well, it's a simple fix, but it's not an easy fix because obviously nobody's going to sign up to do it. But because people are touching so much right wing themes, a natural progression of this is saying black people can have Florida, Louisiana, East Texas, this fucking fly, and the Mexicans can have like a little bit of Texas, Arizona, and California, and white people can have like an enclave in Los Angeles, but the rest of America can be white people. And I don't know that there should be harsh enforcement on it, but if there was some sort of mandate where people they wouldn't, how would I put it? They wouldn't have to put a decree on paper, but people know to stick in their own area. And because we live in such an open liberal society, it's like hard to think of it in that proposal. But unfortunately, I believe that's the way the U.S. should mostly be structured, racially. Um, but yeah, that's about it. Obviously, some people would be on board, but by and large, people, as much as they complain, they're not going to do that. I mean, that assumes uprooting a shit ton of people and moving them there, and then getting other people to move there, and people just don't have the wherewithal or the means or the money or the time. They're just not. It's just not going to happen. But it's what should happen because race is real, and I'm making documentaries about race, not like in a eugenics way, but about Jews and hopefully black people in the future. Because I mean, you want to tackle the Jew thing first because they matter more in the sense that they're in positions of power, so they change more in the society, especially in an open, liberal, democratic society. But black people are a big part of that because they're the Jews' proxy in culture and other ways. So, but yeah, I'm getting off topic, but that's my prospected approach to how the U.S. should be. And people are becoming more right wing. They're becoming more able, more free to speak about, more willing, I should say, more willing to speak about race and about uncomfortable truths about our racial realities. So I just wanted to kind of predict that, hopefully, but we'll see what happens. And hopefully I don't, get too much backlash, but I don't know. Black people aren't the smartest people. They're going to be like, oh, that's like racist. Even though in the same breath they'll like revere Malcolm X, who was like a black nationalist, which makes no sense. But yeah.